Hey guys, and welcome to the very beginning lesson. I'm so excited that you guys are here. So this lesson is going to be for the very beginners, or maybe you've crocheted a little bit, but you're not totally sure about your technique. So in this lesson, we are going to be going over a few different things. The first of which is how to hold your crochet hook, how to start with a slip stitch, and how to start a beginning chain. So those three things are going to comprise starting a totally new pattern. We're also going to go over how to turn, how to chain stitches to begin with, how to do a slip stitch, counting stitches and why it's important, how to fix a screw up if you do screw up, which you will. So we're going to go over how to fix it, and also how to do a single crochet, a double crochet, and a half double crochet. So let's jump right on in here. And one of the first things that I wanted to go over actually is this ball of yarn. This is actually a skein, which I have used. You can see it's a little deflated now because I've been using it for a pattern for you guys. Now there are two different ways to use your yarn. Typically I am an impatient person. And it always comes back to bite me in the butt. So when you get a skein, there's going to be a yarn, hopefully, sticking out of the middle. And there's also going to be one wrapped around the outside. So for this pattern, I actually happen to grab the one wrapped around the outside. But normally when you get a skein, it's very nice. And you want to start off with your pattern, just grabbing this middle piece of yarn and going to work, right? It's very easy to pull out at the beginning, no issues, no worries. But one of the things that I wanted to go over with you guys, and one of the hazards of doing it that way, is that the inside yarn here has a tendency to get tangled up. I've had many skeins where I've started crocheting with this nice little tempting piece of yarn here, and I get a couple of rows into the pattern and I pull out this big chunk of knotted yarn, and then I'm super frustrated because I can't get it undone, and I've already started crocheting and now I have to stop and try to get this huge knot undone. And another hazard with doing that is, even if it doesn't start at the beginning, when you get down to the very end, you can see that it starts to get limp. That yarn at the very end will tangle on you without a doubt. So one of the things that I recommend doing, if you don't want to take the time to wrap it into a ball of yarn, is you can start with the one that's on the outside. This will make sure that you're not tangling up the yarn from the inside. So that's one way to do it if you are impatient like I am. But one of the things that I highly recommend, and I'm actually going to start doing once I have a little bit more time and I can work on my patience factor, is I'm actually going to start getting old toilet paper rolls or paper towel rolls. And what you can do is you can take this yarn and you can wrap it around your toilet paper roll or your paper towel cardboard tube. So this way it's not as tedious as wrapping it into a ball of yarn like this. Because this took me a lot of time to do, and it's tedious and it's constantly falling off the sides and it's annoying. And plus, when I crochet with this, my cats are constantly trying to steal it because they're like, oh, it's a cat toy. So I don't like rolling yarn into balls. But I saw this idea the other day and I wanted to share it with you guys, is wrapping it around a cardboard tube, whether it's the toilet paper roll or the paper towel roll. And you can get one of those toilet paper stands for a bathroom. You can get one that's, only a foot tall or whatever, and put it on your side table. So this way, as you're crocheting, it's just pulling the yarn off for you and it looks super cool. So I wanted to share that with you guys. But basically, avoid this middle piece of yarn. So we are going to start. So this is our yarn, and this is a crochet hook. So this is just a basic metal crochet hook. We're going to be going over different types of crochet hooks in a different lesson, but these are my crochet hooks. So you can see that this is a G in the US, and then if I, oh, no, this one doesn't have it. Usually it'll have a G and then it will have the millimeter listed as well. We will have a conversion chart for you guys somewhere in the membership. So this way you know the difference. Just in case you get one like this, I think I bought these from Walmart, so that's probably why, if it doesn't have both of them on there for you. But all of your crochet hooks should at least have one measurement, whether it's the US letter or it's in millimeter. So this way you know what kind of crochet hook it is. And you can see here that it has kind of this flat spot in the middle. So when you're holding your crochet hook, there are two different ways to hold it that are quote unquote acceptable. But I want to add in this caveat right here at the very beginning. Anything that we talk about in this membership in terms of technique that is outside of actual stitches in crocheting. So if we're talking about how to hold your hook, how to hold tension, anything like that, take it all with a grain of salt, because crocheting is all about what makes you the most comfortable. Everybody crochets a little bit differently. If you have, read my bio or seen the beginning lessons, then you know that I learned how to crochet from my grandmother. And even though she taught me how to crochet, I still crochet differently than she does in terms of how I hold my hook and how I keep tension on my yarn. So it's all about finding what is most comfortable for you as you go through this process. So there are two different quote unquote acceptable ways to hold your crochet hook. So the first is going to be what's called the pencil hold. So all you're going to do is grip it with your thumb and your index finger. And when I do this hold, I rest it on my middle finger, and you're basically holding it like you would a writing utensil. So that is one way. The other way is to hold it like you are cutting a piece of meat. It's called the knife hold. So we would hold it between our thumb and our index finger on the other side, just like I would be cutting a piece of meat. And this way I kind of grip it with my entire hand, and I feel like I have more control. So this is a way that I grip it, but try both of them and see what works for you. So we'll put this aside for the moment. Now we are going to talk about how to start your pattern with a slip knot. And there are a couple of different ways to do this. So the first way, actually, you know what? I'll show you the pretzel way first. So before we jump into this, when you are making a slip knot, you're going to have what is called a tail. And the tail is going to be the end piece of yarn between this and your slip stitch. So when I first started crocheting, I was super impatient and I thought I was super slick because of course I was, a kid and I thought I knew everything. And I would start my slip stitch super close to the end of the yarn. And that was a terribly bad idea because when I finished my pattern, I had to go back in and weave in the ends, which, by the way, is my least favorite part of crocheting. And when I was weaving in the ends, I had these little itty bitty pieces of yarn that would never stay in my piece. So I constantly had like these fraying ends of yarn sticking out, and it drove me nuts. So finally one day, my grandmother sat me down and said, listen, I know you think you know everything, but you don't. And what you want to do when you are starting your pattern, even though it's going to be a super pain in the butt to begin with, is you want to have a long tail. I recommend 5 to 6 inches. And what this does is it allows you to have enough yarn to weave it into your piece so you don't have these little tiny pieces of yarn sticking out driving you crazy like I did. So keep a long tail. So the first way to start a slip stitch is to do a pretzel. So I don't do this way very often, but I find it's the easiest for beginners. So hopefully I do this right the first time. If I don't, I apologize in advance. But you're going to basically draw a pretzel, and you want to do it on a flat surface because this is visual. So for those of you who are visual learners, this is going to be the easiest way for you. So we start out with the one side of our pretzel. We take our yarn and we're going to loop it over here. And depending on how you have this laid out, if you follow this exactly, so this loop is underneath this loop, Then you are going to grab this piece right here and pull it up. Hopefully I've done this right. No, I did not. Okay. See, I told you guys I was going to mess this up. Okay, so let's draw our pretzel again. See, I think I have this backwards. I do have this backwards. Okay, so we're going to restart this. So actually what we'll do is we'll draw this pretzel. And what you want to do when you are doing this, we have our pretzel. So I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to wrap it under. So hopefully you guys saw how I did that. So I'm going to do that again real quick for you guys in the back. So we have our first loop. We take it, we draw our pretzel, and then we're going to take this and put it under the loop. So you can see here how we have this nice pretzel shape and it's crossed under. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece and we're going to draw it up. Boom. Just like that, we have our slip stitch, and I'll put it on our crochet hook here and we tighten it up. Bam, we are in business. So that is one way to do it, is with the pretzel. Another way to start a slip stitch is to do a loop like this. So I'll do that again for you guys in the back. Loop it over, and then what we're going to do, now that we have this loop, we're going to take our crochet hook, stick it through, grab that piece of yarn, pull it through the loop. Boom, there we go, we're in business. And then the third way to do it, which is actually the way that I do it all the time, because I've been doing this for years and years and years, is I will wrap it around my finger, take my finger out, and I just push it through rather than using my crochet hook. And then I stick my crochet hook in there and boom, we're ready to go, just like that. So those are 3 different ways to start a pattern. Again, all about finding what is most comfortable for you. So find what's comfortable for you, try all of them. The next piece to this is how to hold your yarn. So we know how to hold our crochet hook in our dominant hand that we're going to be using actually to crochet all of these magical things. But what the heck do we do with this hand, right? So this hand is going to be holding on to our yarn to keep tension. And we also use this hand to hold on to our crochet piece. So this hand actually has a super important job. And there are a couple of different ways to hold tension on your yarn. And the reason that tension is so important is because if you, say, don't have any tension in your yarn, you're going to be making your stitches super big and you're going to have a bunch of holes in your pattern and it's not going to come out the way that you want, which is no good. And then the total opposite of that is if you're like me, when I first started, you will have way too much tension. So you'll be making your stitches super small and super tight. And even though you can make a pattern like that, it's not going to be fun or enjoyable because it's going to be a heck of a time trying to get into the stitches on your pattern because it's so tight you can't get your hook in. So you want to make sure that you have just the right amount of tension, and that comes just with practice. The more that you crochet and the more that you do, you're going to figure out what's the right amount of tension and how to get that by holding the yarn in your non-dominant hand. So there are a couple of different ways to hold the yarn with your hand. So one of the ways is to loop the yarn in between your index and your middle finger. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, put my hook down for this, wrap the yarn around your pinky. So that allows you to hold tension between your index and your middle finger. So you can squeeze the yarn and let go when you need to, and then it's going to wrap around your pinky and feed through. And then you can hold the pattern with your thumb and your ring finger. Another way to do it is very, very similar. Instead of wrapping it in between your index and your middle finger, you're going to wrap it in between your index or your middle and your ring finger, and then again wrap it around your pinky. Same concept, and then you can hold a pattern in between your middle and your thumb finger, which actually feels more comfortable now that I'm doing it this way. Or the way that I do it is all I do is I just wrap it in between my index and my middle finger and hold a pattern this way. The downside to not wrapping it around your pinky is it takes a little bit more muscle to hold the yarn in between your fingers, and sometimes it does get away from me. So you just need to be mindful of that. If you're just starting out, you may want to wrap it around your pinky as well and just kind of figure out what works for you. But those are the 3 different ways to keep tension with your non-dominant hand. So let's start by chaining. So to start a pattern, we have our slip stitch here, and every pattern is going to start out with you chaining. So all you do to chain is you grab your yarn. Let me get a little bit closer for you guys. Grab the yarn on your hook and pull it through, and that is 1 chain. So let's do 10 here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have chained 10. So if you are doing a super long chain, like for some of the blankets that I've made, you chain like 100, 150, 200, 300, so on and so forth, which if your house is anything like mine, I have kids running around screaming their heads off and dogs barking and cats trying to steal my yarn, so it's very easy to lose count. So one of the skills that is super important is for you guys to learn how to count your stitches and counting your chains. And counting the chains is a little bit different than counting your stitches, but both are super important. Counting your chains is going to make sure that you have the right foundation that you need. So if you need to chain 300 but you only do 250, then you're going to be totally screwed when you're trying to do the pattern. So to count your chains, all you would do is, see if I can get this close enough for you guys. Come on, focus. Is you count where you have, it's basically what looks like the top of a stitch. So you have these 2 strands. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So that is how you would count the chain, if you guys can see that well enough. And then we'll go over counting your stitches once we get to that point. And yeah, we'll get there when we get there. So that is how to chain a chain. Now, depending on the pattern, it's going to tell you to either do a stitch in the first chain from the hook, the second chain from the hook, or the third chain from the hook. So this is super important, again, to make sure you don't mess up your pattern. So when you're first doing this off of the beginning chain and you want to count these, you're not going to count the chain that's on your hook. So you can see the yarn that's coming out of that chain. That does not count when you are counting the chains from your hook. So if you wanted to do a stitch in the first chain from your hook, it is going to be this one right here. The second chain from the hook is right here. And then the third chain from the hook is right here, and so on and so forth. So you're not counting the one that the yarn is currently in. You're going to go over. So let's see, for the sake of the argument, we want to single crochet in the one from the hook. So we just put our needle in here, and this is a little bit different than the rest of the pattern. And this is going to depend upon also what your pattern wants you to do and also what you feel like is most comfortable. So for most of the patterns that I crochet, when I am crocheting on a starting chain, I will only take 1 loop of yarn. But what I did when I was first beginning, because again, I had like super tight tension and I was super concerned about everything being sturdy, is I would actually take this piece of yarn and then I would take the second piece of yarn. I'm going to make sure I stay on the camera here. So let me see if I can get this here. So we have 1 and 2. So you can see that I have 1 piece of yarn here and 2 on top. This is entirely up to your preference and how tight you have your tension, but just something to keep in mind. So for the beginning chain, I only do it in the top loop. So there we go. There is our single crochet, and we're going to single crochet across the chain. Another thing to note too while I'm going across this, your speed in crocheting doesn't matter. You could be the fastest crocheter in the world or the slowest crocheter in the world. What matters is that you are having fun and you're enjoying it. The speed doesn't matter. Oops. I was going to do a double crochet just from habit. Alrighty, and we've got to our end. So typically once you get to the end of the first row, you are going to have to chain. So we're going to chain 2. So now we've gone over the single crochet, and all you do to turn a pattern is literally just flip it over. Excuse me guys, I'm gonna grab a piece of water. Drink of water. Been recording videos all day, my voice is going. So all you do to turn it, literally just turn it around. So let me take a look here at my list. Okay, so the next thing we're going to go over is the half double crochet and the double crochet. So when you are starting a new row on a pattern, you are going to start in this chain that is right next to, I'll do it this way, to where you chained. So you can see here that there is this loop right here. So that is where we are going to start off at. So to do a half double crochet, you're going to loop over your hook. Also guys too, as I was going through this video, I forgot to mention at the beginning, all of my videos that I do are going to be in US terms because I am in the US. For all of you UKers, I apologize. Just print out our chart and have it next to you when you're watching these videos, so this way you can relate to what I'm talking to. So to do a half double crochet, you're going to loop over or yarn over your hook, insert into the top 2 loops of the stitch. I'm gonna move that yarn out of the way so you can see I inserted over the top 2 pieces of yarn, and I'm going to grab the yarn with my hook and pull it through. So you can see here that I now have 3 loops of yarn on my hook, and a half double crochet, you yarn over your hook again and pull it all the way through. So that is a half double crochet. So we'll do that again for you guys in the back. Yarn over the hook, put it through the next stitch, making sure we get both pieces of yarn, yarn over the hook. So now we have 3, yarn over the hook again, and pull it all the way through. So again, that is a half double crochet. Now to do a double crochet, it's very similar. So we're going to yarn over the hook. We're going to make sure we're getting both loops of the yarn, yarn over the hook again, and yarn over the hook again. You can see that we have 3 loops of yarn, yarn over, but instead of pulling it all the way, we are going to pull it through only 2 of the loops. So now we have 2, and then we're going to yarn over again and pull it through those remaining 2 loops. I'm gonna grab some more yarn here. See, disadvantage to having a skein. Okay, so again, for those people in the back, yarn over, pass it through, yarn over. So we have 3, yarn over, only pull it through 2 of the loops, yarn over, and pull it through. So that is a half double crochet and a double crochet. So now let's say that I wasn't supposed to do that, right? I totally screwed up. All you need to do to fix it is just take your hook out, and we're going to unravel this all the way back to the beginning. Boom. So now I only have one chain there. Voila. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to single crochet through this for you guys. Oops. One thing to note too is that I'm doing this with a super soft yarn, as I was actually using this to make a baby blanket. And the disadvantage to using a super soft yarn is that the threads in the yarn have a tendency to come apart. So you have to be careful when you're working with certain types of yarn that you're not getting extra strands. Oh, see, perfect. As I'm talking about that. So you can see how when I was trying to pull it through, an extra piece of that old loop got stuck. So I just need to make sure that I get it through all of it. And nope, we can get it through the end. Sometimes with these colors it's kind of hard to see where those two pieces, see, I kind of had to turn it there and make sure I'm getting both of these. Oh, here we go. Boom. Okay, so now counting stitches on a pattern. So counting your stitches is super important, because if you don't count your stitches, you're either going to be adding stitches as you go, or you're going to be losing stitches as you go. And both of them are bad juju. If you are adding stitches as you go, you're going to create a pattern that is bigger at the top. So it's basically gonna look like this, and it's not going to be square, and your pattern's gonna be all off. If you are losing stitches as you go, it's going to be the complete opposite. So it's going to look like this. So it's going to be super small at the top, super big at the bottom. And again, it's all bad juju. So you want to make sure that you're counting stitches. So this way your piece is perfectly square or rectangular, or maybe it's a circle. You want, whatever it's supposed to be, you want to make sure that it looks like that. So to count your stitches, you're going to, just like with the beginning chain, you're going to look at the loops at the top. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you can see here, I wasn't paying attention and apparently I lost a stitch somewhere. So that's why you count your stitches. So I think that is everything. Oh, a slip stitch. Right. So the last thing we are going to go over is how to do a slip stitch. So I'm going to chain one here to get my yarn over. There we go. All right, so how to do a slip stitch. Slip stitches are super easy. So you're going to work them kind of like a single crochet. So all you do is you are going to put your yarn into the hook here. Get it through, and you're going to pull this through. Oh, it's getting stuck on my yarn. And then pull it all the way through. So that is the slip stitch. So a single crochet is you pull it through, you have the 2 loops, you pull it through. Slip stitch is you're just pulling it all the way through. Okay, one more time for you guys in the back. Single crochet, 2 loops, pull it through. Slip stitch is pull it all the way through. Okay, all right, let me look at my list here, make sure we have everything. And it does look like we covered everything in this lesson. Awesome. So if you guys have any questions on anything in here, please head on over to the Facebook group. Let me or my team know, and we are happy to help, because again, we are all about making sure that you guys are not only succeeding with crocheting, but having fun. We want to make sure you're having fun. So if you've gone through this lesson, congratulations. You are officially a crocheter. So go celebrate and then move on to the next lesson. See you guys there.